This is station 4. Any luck with the video sync?
Drew, we're working on it right now. We got the information.
Okay, is that going to come up on BME TV then, or will I have to look at a different channel?
Checking.
If you send it up on BME TV, I can just log into it now, and you guys can just switch the channel.
We'll do that. Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. I am ready for the event.
MotoGP, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to interrupt here. We will hopefully get the conclusion to that answer another time, but we have something rather special going on, as you can probably see from your screens. This is MotoGP. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I've got you loud and clear, Steve. How are you?
I'm very good. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute pleasure to say that we don't have social media questions today, but we do have a MotoGP fan from outer space. This is, of course, Drew Fustel, NASA astronaut and Expedition 56 commander, currently on the International Space Station. He went into space on March the 21st. Drew, just quickly, I'll tell you that we are, of course, here at Silverstone. We know you can't see us, but we can see you. I can tell you that Marc Marquez, the world champion, is here, Valentino Rossi, Jorge Lorenzo, Andrea Dovizioso, Cal Crutchlow, and Alvaro. And each of those guys will be asking you a question shortly. But if it's all right with you, I've just got a few myself.
Yeah, go ahead. Actually, I can see you guys. I'm trying to stream back up the conference from the MotoGP site, so I've got a view of you, and appreciate you all taking the time to say hi to me today.
This is, I've got to say, pretty cool. Right, okay, first question, of course. How is life in orbit at the moment?
Well, it's fantastic. We're having a good time up here. I've been up in space for, going on 6.5 months, and or 6 months, and a few more weeks to go, about 6 weeks to go, and I'll be back on Earth in early October. But I've had a great time up here so far. Every day is something new and interesting.
We've seen, for those that follow you on social media, some amazing photos that you've taken of the circuits, and we can see that you're a fan. So how long have you been a MotoGP fan, and what is it about the sport you love the most?
Well, I've been into motorsports my whole life, and I raced motocross when I was a kid between the ages of 10 and 13, and that progressed into other things, eventually into karting. So I've always been a fan of motorbikes, and I've always loved watching the racing. And what's most incredible to me is how fast you guys go on those bikes, and the fact that the bikes are every bit as fast as a race car on any of these tracks, and a lot of times faster. It's just amazing to me the skill that you all possess in the balance and the intensity with which you race, and the ability to put that bike wherever you want it, or hopefully wherever you want it, and keep it all under control. And I can't believe the way those things slide at over 100 miles an hour. That just seems unrealistic to me, to be sliding a bike sideways as you're rolling into a turn and then back out of it at those speeds. It's just incredible to watch that.
We know that you watch all of the MotoGP races every Sunday from space. How does that compare for you to watching it live? Because, of course, you were actually at the Czech Republic Grand Prix last year.
Well, you know, nothing compares to watching an event live, and the same is true of watching a rocket launch. If you see one on TV, you think, well, that's pretty neat. I've seen that before and must be amazing. But when you see a rocket launch in person, it takes on a whole different meaning. And I used to compare rocket launches to watching a dragster, a top fuel dragster, go down the track. If you watch one on TV, it's no big deal. But when you see it in person, it's just incredible and really blows you away. I think the MotoGP bikes, the racing is the same thing. I had such an incredible time at Brno last year, and the experience was just fantastic. And seeing the bikes up close, listening to them, I really enjoyed traveling around the inside of the circuit, stopping at all the corners and on the straightaways, watching the bikes. When you can see the wheel, I know this is not desirable, but watching that front end just barely lift off the ground, watching you guys, you riders, as the bike just floats down the straightaway and the wheels kind of turned, but the bike keeps going straight as you lay on the throttle. It's just amazing. So seeing it in person is really the way to watch it. And up here, unfortunately, I'm sort of rooting by myself, and I spent a lot of time with myself yelling and screaming at the computer screen about what's going on with the races, but I would really prefer to watch it in person. But I'm happy that I get a chance to follow the season so far from space.
Well, as I mentioned, we have 6 riders here. I'm sure all eager to have a chat to you. So I'm going to pass you over to them now, starting off with Mark.
Hello. I appreciate what are you doing, and you are a hero. So I would like to know which is your favorite circuit.
Well, you know, I would have to say I have a couple of favorite circuits, and one of them is the one that you're at right now, Silverstone. I really feel like that's such an iconic track and has represented motorsports and racing for so long. It's really sort of a hallmark of what happens in motorsports. So I hope that you guys enjoy that track as well. It seems pretty special. I was lucky enough to see the Silverstone Grand Prix last year. Not your race, but another. And but Brno is also one of my favorite tracks, and that's because I have family from that city. My wife's mother was actually raised there in Brno, and so we have a lot of relatives in the Czech Republic. And it was really special for me to be there, and I love that layout. I hope you guys like it as well. Just the changes in elevation and the setting there up on the hill. It seems pretty spectacular to me as a spectator. I don't know what it's like for you all as racers to manage all those elevation changes in the setting there, but that's one of my favorites as well. I really enjoy watching the races there.
Thank you very much, Drew. That was Mark Marquez. Next question comes from Valentino Rossi.
Pronto. Hi. Ciao. I'm Valentino. How far are you now from us? And how long you need to arrive there? How much time?
Yeah, good question. So I can answer that in a couple ways. So right now I'm flying over the west coast of Africa. So I'm actually not that far south of you. But I'm traveling around the Earth at 17,500 miles an hour. So it takes me 90 minutes to get around the planet, about an hour and a half. And as I said, I got here in March, and I'll return in October, so almost 7 months.
Almost 7 months, okay. Oddio, l'abbiamo perso.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you to Valentino Rossi. Next question comes from Jorge Lorenzo.
Hello, I'm Jorge. You look like very comfortable there. Maybe a little bit lonely, though. But my question is, do you practice sport in the space? And what about diet? What do you eat in the space?
Yeah, so in terms of sports, I mean, really what we do is exercise. I think that's probably what you're talking to. We exercise almost 2.5 hours a day, both on a resistive exercise device like a self-contained gym, and then also a treadmill, or right next to me is actually our stationary bike. And we have to do that because in space we don't use our legs. You can see I'm floating most of the time here. The only thing I use to move around is my hands and my arms, my fingertips. My legs don't get much work, either does my back. So it's really important for us to load up our skeletal structure, our spine and our legs, so that our bones, so that our body keeps sending nutrients to our bones and keeps our muscles strong, so that when we get back to Earth and return to gravity, that we can actually stand up and walk. So that's the key for us, is getting that exercise to allow us to return to Earth's environment, where we were created and where we grew up. And then in terms of food, you know, a lot of what we eat is similar to camping food. So we have food that's prepared, or we call ready-to-eat meals, where you can either eat them cold or warm them up in an oven that we have. We have dehydrated food that we have to add water back into and wait for 15 to 20 minutes till we can eat it. And then we have off-the-shelf food, things that you could buy at the grocery store, like pudding cups or fruit cups, things like that. And that's what we eat. And I think that you guys probably pay more attention to specific diets than we do. The races can be quite grueling, and of course the heat, and so you have to be physically and your bodies have to be chemically in the right condition to endure all that stress. For us, it's not as challenging. We have moments of challenge, for example, when we do spacewalks or when we're launching, that we really have to focus. But in terms of specifically watching our diet, the main thing we focus on up here is reducing our salt intake. But it's important for us to get a lot of proteins and carbohydrates just to keep our weight up, because we tend to lose weight in space because our metabolism's not quite working as fast as it would on Earth, basically because we're not walking around all the time.
Okay, next question comes from Andrea Dovizioso.
Ciao, I'm Andrea, and do you have a bike on Earth?
I think the question was, do I have a bike or do I ride a bike? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I don't ride a bike anymore. As I mentioned, I used to race motocross and then BMX bikes, so bicycles, and then I did karting for about 7 years. And during my younger years when I was at university, I did have a 1978 Honda CB750F that was slightly modified and great to ride around campus while I was at university. I stopped riding after I got out of school because I realized that it wasn't really safe to be riding that motorcycle on the street. I would have much rather have had it on a track where I think it's a safer place to ride and go fast. So right now I don't have a bike. But I would look forward to riding one in the future, not on the roads though, probably on a track somewhere. But don't tell my wife I said that, although she probably heard that.
Thanks very much. Next question from Cal Crutchlow.
Hey Drew, nice to speak to you again. Obviously I know you're a big fan of MotoGP, and you come to the Brno with the LCR on the team last year, so it's good to speak to you again. Jorge sort of covered my question. So I'm going to change it completely and ask you, do you know what every single cable there does? And can you talk us through them all?
Well, Cal, you probably imagined that would take a long time, but hey, I do want to say hi to you. You know, I'm a big fan of you and the team and Lucio, and I appreciate the time that we spent together chatting, and I think the season's going well, and it's great to see you competing at the top of the pack. So keep up the good work. Do I know what everything is in here? I mostly know what everything is in here. Sometimes we sort of learn about stuff as we go. A lot of what we call OJT, or on-the-job training. but it's a challenge. There's a lot of equipment in here, and we are trained to operate all of it. Some of the equipment we don't specifically know exactly what the details are, a lot of the experiments, but we do know how to help the researchers obtain the data that they need. All of the overhead equipment or the mechanical systems of the ISS we do understand. So what you see in here is not only life support systems and power and thermal control systems for the space station just to keep it operating, but also you see experiments lining the walls. So there's a glove box there off to your left. This is a combustion integrated rack for studying combustion in space. This is a microscope that looks at fluids and fluid processes in space. So there's experiments everywhere in here that we work with every day. There's freezers, ultra cold freezers, things operating at minus 85 degrees centigrade. A lot of equipment, centrifuges in here. There's a window beneath me that looks down on Earth. In fact, there's a lot of windows. There's some particular windows down in the Russian segment that I use to take my photos of the racetracks. But great question, Cal. I guess you could say that on the space station we know a little about a lot instead of maybe a lot about a little. But we do pretty well in operating up here, and what we don't know, the ground teams do a great job of leading us through procedures to keep us on the right track and most importantly not make any mistakes up here.
Thanks, Cal, for the curveball there. Final question from the riders from Alvaro.
Hola, Drew. I'm Alvaro. Which challenge do you have being an astronaut there in the space?
I didn't quite get that. Could you guys repeat that for me? Steve, could you repeat that question?
Yes. Which challenge do you have being an astronaut?
I still didn't get it. Which?
Alvaro's just saying, what challenges do you face being an astronaut?
Yeah, sometimes one of them is hearing mission control talk over the radios and hearing you guys speaking from Silverstone. So I apologize for that, Alvaro. The challenge is just everyday living and working. We've spent a lot of time in space, and it's a beautiful place to work. There are challenges to working in zero gravity or microgravity. One of them is that although it's amazing to always be floating like I am, it's also sometimes a challenge to be only floating. My body is always in the same position. I never get to stand up. I never feel any pressure on my feet unless I'm working on the treadmill. And so the same is true when I go to sleep. So when you lay down for bed at night, you get to take all the load off your feet and lay down, and gravity sort of puts some pressure on your head and your body, and I think it feels comfortable. At least that's what I remember it as. But when I'm just working in the cabin or sitting here, my legs are always in the same position. My arms are always in about the same position. And so when I go to sleep, I'm also in this exact position. So it's almost as if you never get a break from microgravity, and that makes it difficult sometimes to relax at night, because you still feel like you're in the same physical position that you're in when you're working all the time. And so that's a challenge. And I would also tell you that using the bathroom is a challenge in space. And that's one of the things I'm going to look forward to is, sleeping in a bed, using a real bathroom, and taking a shower, because that's the other thing we can't do in space.
Drew, we're going to ask you to join in now with a tradition at the end of press conferences. We normally get the riders to stand for a photo, and we're going to get these guys to actually join you on the TV screen. So if you could just smile and pose for us, we're going to get the riders now to come around the TV and pose for the photos before we conclude the event.
That sounds great. I'll stand by for a photo.
Thanks so much to you, Drew. I have to say that for you, MotoGP riders, I'm sure are heroes, but there are so many people that wish they could be out in space, and it is a true pleasure for you to be joining us here. Just before you go, seeing as we have these riders here, is there any questions that you have for anyone here today?
Well, you know, I could ask some questions, but I don't want to show any favoritism to any one team or another. I just enjoy watching you guys every weekend, and I love the camaraderie. I know you guys are friends. A lot of you are friends, and it's amazing to see how the competition has really built this year, and to see how close the races have been. I know, Mark, you've really had you really kind of had the lead early on and at the end of last season, and I think the guys are all catching up and starting to sort it out. Maybe that's motivation for you to go a little faster, but I just love watching you guys, and I want to congratulate you all on a great season so far. It's been amazing and quite entertaining for me to watch the races from space. I hope you've enjoyed the photos that you're seeing of the tracks. I'm taking them for you as well as everybody else. So thanks for what you're doing. Keep up the good work. Ride safe, most importantly, but go fast. We all enjoy watching you.
Drew, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to Houston as well. And we look forward to seeing you at the MotoGP event soon. Thank you.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you, MotoGP and participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.